Okay, all right. Shalom, Lord Christ. I'm Officer of 1,000 Yahweh. This is the Atlanta history class. So basically, we got classes every day from Monday through Friday, 7 to 9, and Sabbath class from 11 to 12. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right. Now, we all know about how Israel, we've always been slaves, right? Throughout all our history, we've been slaves just in and out of captivity, right? The first one was the one in Egypt, right? And this says this is our last slavery that we're going to have. Because the Most High, He's going to get us out of the slavery, and that's when we're going to be ruling. That's when the kingdom of heaven is going to start, right? So, give me anybody on the conference call? Hey, Napas, see if they can spare one brother to read because one on the conference call.
Oh.
All right. All right. We're going to go to Jeremiah 2 and 14. You want you to read?
Yes.
You want you to read?
No.
You gonna read the part or you got somebody?
No, read.
All right. All right, give me Jeremiah 2 and 14.
Conference call?
No one on the conference call.
Hey, about a message that people call in. You done read right now. Watch the thread.
All right, Jeremiah 2 and 14. It says, "Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled?" This is Jeremiah. He's basically, questioning. He wants to know why it's like Israel, like, are we born to be slaves? Because we literally had that many captivities back and forth, right? Just going, doing whatever. It doesn't, just from one captivity to the other. We went to Syrian captivity, Persians and the Medes, Egypt, all these different captivities. It just was just back and forth. We were slaves under every nation. Every nation we've been slaves under. So Jeremiah was like, why is this? Is he just made to be a slave to everybody? And it says, why is he spoiled? That means, why is he destroyed? Why is this, right? So this Jeremiah is saying this. Also, I need Ecclesiastes 10 and 5. Ecclesiastes 10 and 5. It says, "There is an evil which I have seen under the sun," right? This is Solomon. Because remember, Solomon, he was shown everything. He was shown the beginning and the end, right? Because remember, Solomon is the spirit of Christ. That's the same spirit that Solomon had. So he knew the beginning and the end. So he said, "There's an evil which I have seen under the sun," right? "As an error which proceedeth from the ruler. As an error which proceedeth from the ruler." So this is like an error that coming from, who's supposed to be ruling. It's not supposed to happen. He said, "Folly is set in great dignity." What does folly mean?
Sorry, you said folly?
Folly. folly. It means like foolishness, right? That's what folly is, like foolishness. It is set in great dignity. Think about today. What is something that's foolishness that is set in great dignity, right? All right, who just joined in? That's who? Devon. What's up? Get his attendance. Hey, how you spell your name, Devon?
E-A-V-O-N, sir.
E-A-V-O, right? Alright. You got your sword in front of you? You got your sword in front of you, Devon? Alright, go to Ecclesiastes 10 and 6. I need you to read for me, alright?
Okay, it's not, hold on one second. I got it down. I can't get to it right now, sir. I don't know the.
Alright, good.
But I'm getting into it.
Alright, good. Alright. So, like I was saying, folly is set in great dignity. What's something that's foolish today that's set in great dignity? Something that's foolish. Anybody know? You can go with whoredom now, right? That's foolishness.
Like homosexuality.
Homosexuality. That's folly. Because what does all these things do? It destroys you. Right? Just like we read, he said, why is Israel spoiled? Israel's spoiled because we want to partake in these things. We want to be homosexuals, you know what I'm saying? We want to be whores, we want to be on drugs, all these things, right? We want to sleep with each other's women, right? That's folly. Like, what's another thing? What Trey song? What do you say? He the one that take your girl. Mr. Steal Your Girl. Ain't that Trey song? Those Trey songs, ain't it? That's held in dignity. Mr. Steal Your Girl. But that's folly, right? It's set in high dignity to do these things. There's nothing dignified in taking somebody's woman. That's actually being a homosexual, right? Go ahead.
Or did you still let me read that scripture?
You can read the other part of it.
That was, you said Ecclesiastes 10:6.
Okay.
Ecclesiastes 10:6. Folly is set in great dignity. And the rich sit in low places.
The rich. Who's the rich? Who's the rich? In this verse. Go ahead, sis. It says the rich sit in low place. Nah. We're in a low place. Exactly. There you go. We in a low place. Because what does it say? It says what does it say? Revelations 2 and 9, right? Or is it 3 and 9? It's one of those two. It says I know people that say that they are Jews and are not, right? But they are the synagogues of Satan. And he really said, I've seen your trouble but you are, and you said, but you are rich. You know what I mean? Y'all, everybody familiar with that verse? I need to pull it. You know about that verse, Devon? Or you need me to pull it?
You know, sir, I did. I'm learning.
All right, Kyle, we'll pull it. Go to it's in Revelations. Go to Revelations 2 and 9. Read that for me. Got that for me yet up?
Yes, sir. It said Revelation 2:9.
Okay.
I know thy works and tribulation and poverty.
So he knows that you low, that you in a low part. He knows that you poor. He knows thy works, what you trying to do, what you trying to get. He knows the tribulation. He knows the heartache that you got to go through, the struggle that you got to go through. Keep going.
But thou art rich. And
thou art rich. He said you're poor right now, but you are rich. Right? Keep going.
And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
No, the synagogue of Satan. That's who they are, the synagogue of Satan. Exactly what it is. That's your oppressors. They are the synagogue of Satan. They saying that they're Jews, but they are not. But they are the synagogue of Satan. All right. Now take me back to Ecclesiastes 10 and go to 7 for me. Anybody else join the conference call? All right, let me know if you get back over there.
You said,
Yeah, go back to Ecclesiastes.
that's right.
Yeah, Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 7.
Ecclesiastes 10:7. I have seen slaves on horseback, while princes go on foot like slaves.
That's heavy right there. Wait, what are you reading from?
You know, Shalaki, whoa. Yeah, that was NIV version.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, okay, I figured something. Right, but I'll read it for you while you switch out. But it says, I have seen servants upon horses, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. So the servants are these other nations. Because you got to think, this is the time Solomon, we was ruling. We didn't, no more of Israel were slaves during Solomon's rule, right? All of Israel was free. And we had slaves. And guess who those slaves were? Them other nations. So now he's looking and seeing, he see the people that's supposed to be our servants is riding on horses. Because you know the servants have to walk while the owner rides the horse. So he's saying princes walking while the servants is on the horse. So he's seeing the reverse of what is supposed to be happening. Right? We walking. There's like an old like statue that they have that shows it was a Jew, like a Judite, not Judite, Judite, Judite. It was a Judite brother, and it was a Native American, probably Gadite, right? Gadite brother walking on both sides of our oppressor while he riding on the horse. That's what this was referring to. It said we gonna be the servants and they gonna be the ruler. So he's saying this is a folly. This is the thing that's going on. This is crazy that's going on earth. Right?
That's right, sir.
Go ahead.
That's what I heard too much. One second, then I got a question if I could. Also.
Go ahead.
Hey, even when they say about the service on horses, does that go back to even with Bishop Cunha said like how the person was on the board and they, you know what I mean, with the whip, with the you know what I mean, testing the Asian brothers like?
Not exactly. This is talking about it's always people riding on horses, but this is more of talking about like I said, if you know anything about slavery, or if you know anything about just rulership, you would have the slaves, like we were chained up and he had us on a leash walking alongside of him while he's on a horse. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't exactly use that. I mean, yeah, it can fit a little bit, but it's not exactly where you want to go with that. You know what I'm saying? You want to use that more so as the slave catchers. You get what I'm saying? They're the slave catchers. Go ahead. All right, go ahead. I'm saying, okay. So that's what you want to use it more like that. You know what I'm saying? They were the taskmaster. That's what they are. That's the police. That's the taskmaster. So you want to use your taskmaster scriptures with that. You got me up? Ain't no sweat. But yeah, and like I said, they had us on chains next to them. That's how, like, anybody that's like a prince, that's how they roll. They roll with their horse and had their slaves on chains right next to them walking. All right. So we're gonna get into it. Okay, we're gonna get into it. It's we're talking about Nat Turner. Okay, Nat Turner and his slave rebellion. So a lot of people don't know like the history of Nat Turner and what exactly he knew. All right. Can you go ahead and play that for me a little bit, Naposh? Hopefully y'all can hear it on the conference call. Yeah, start from the beginning.
I heard a loud noise in the heavens, and the Spirit instantly appeared to me and said the serpent was loosened.
Pause it right there.
Christ had laid down the...
So he just said, so this is after he was in prison, right? When he got captured, some oppressor man, he came to write down and kind of get like his story, and he said he's telling about the story of his childhood. He's saying that all of the visions that he saw. He said that can you go back just a little bit on that where it said that what he was saying?
Yoke he had borne for the sins of men, and that I should take it on and fight against the serpent. For the time was fast approaching when the first should be last.
Y'all heard that? It said he had a loud noise, right? And he's saying that now he should fight against the serpent.
Spirit instant.
So everybody think that he didn't know that our oppressor was the devil the Bible speaks of. So he's telling right now of the story. He's telling like the seals have been loosed, right? That's in Revelations, right? Talking about the seals being loose. So he said it's time now for us to start getting our way out of captivity, right? So that's how you know this man was a prophet. That's why he's called a prophet, right? That's why he said as he grew up, he was different from most children, right? He didn't grow up the same way. Like his mind was way on a different level than everybody. So he grew up. Then at a point, he was just like, these things that they teaching us doesn't make sense. What they trying to tell us about in the Bible, right? These things don't make sense. Then he became the person that he started, coming along. He started seeing that he needs to change this. He said he started having visions and all of these things, right? That he has to be the one to change it. Keep going.
They appeared to me and said the serpent was loosened. And Christ had laid down the yoke he had borne for the sins of men, and that I should take it on and fight against the serpent. For the time was fast approaching when the first should be last, and the last should be first.
So he said the first should be last and the last should be first. So that's saying the people that was in slavery should be the ones ruling, right? He said it's time is approaching now, right? All right, keep going.
This family, 5 in number, was the work of Noah. There was a little infant sleeping in a cradle that was forgotten until we had left the house and gone some distance when Henry and Will returned and killed it.
Over the next 24 hours, Nat Turner led a small group of slaves from farm to farm, killing every white man, woman, and child they encountered. They gathered guns and more recruits during a brief but bloody revolt that spread terror throughout the slave-holding South. Nat Turner was captured and hanged. In the days before his execution, he agreed to tell his story. But after his death, his words became the property of others, as his body was during his life. His story has been continually retold since 1831. He has been depicted as a great and inspiring hero and vilified as an insane fanatic. Each author possesses Nat Turner, transforming his identity and the meaning of his revolt. Although today we cannot clearly make out the face of the man, he continues to provoke a bitter debate over the Bibles that he inspired. For a nation unable to come to terms with the legacy of slavery, Nat Turner remains a troublesome property.
All right, pause there. Like there's more revolts that we had. That a lot of the things we won't know a lot about. They don't teach us a lot about. They don't know, like that's why I brought out the story about the Gullah Wars and all of that. Teaching about, it was literally wars going on. That's why at this point, it became too much of a hassle to try to keep us in carnal slavery, right? So that's when they had to modify everything. And as we said, it's being loosed. Their grip is being loosed. So they're no longer going to have us carnal slaves anymore. So he knew that this was a change of things was going to happen. That's why, 10, 20 years later, they ended slavery. You know what I'm saying? At least the carnal slavery, of course, right? We all know we're in captivity now, but we out of carnal slavery. Go ahead.
I was about to ask the definition of carnal.
Like physical,
Okay.
like chain slavery.
And now it's more like mental.
We more in the mental slavery now. At that point, we were in the carnal, which carnal just means flesh. So So now we're in the mental slavery. That's what you can use the word carnal for, to say flesh, basically. So we're not in physical chains anymore. Of course, you got brothers that's in prison, because they made it so, was the 13th Amendment, they made it so that you cannot be a slave anymore unless you commit a crime. That was done purposefully so that they can now say that there's a reason why you're a slave right now. And now you're not a slave, you're just a criminal. Right? So now we can lock you up. Now, what those rules to be a criminal are is sketchy, right? It's it's illegal for us to have crack cocaine, but they had a whole crap ton of Quaaludes they was giving out in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? What's the difference between crack and Quaaludes? What's the difference? Black people use the crack. Our oppressors use Quaaludes. Doctors was just giving them out like it was Skittles. They was giving them out. It was Quaaludes. Anybody know what Quaaludes are? Heard of them? Nobody know? All right. Quaaludes was given to women during. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's my bad.
All right.
Nah, I was gonna add something when you got your point there.
Okay, good. But Quaaludes is basically like it was a drug. Of course, it's like in the same class of like what's the drugs like Percocet, it's like that type of stuff. But it was given to women because of like their depression. Because they was giving it to them during the Vietnam War. They was giving it to women, passing them out so they could deal with the depression of like, people coming back, they men, they husbands coming back, have crazy missing body parts. So they was giving it to the women while they was overseas. And then now they was just giving them out so much people was just popping them like they do Percocets now. And it became like how they say crack is for the poor people, cocaine is for the rich. Like it's more illegal to have crack than it is cocaine. But cocaine is more potent than crack, right? It's actually the drug. Crack is just a mixture to make it cheaper that still gives you the effects, right? So that's what that was. Quaaludes, that wasn't illegal to have, but of course crack was. So that's what Quaaludes were. You about to say something, Noah? You can go ahead.
Yeah. Now that you say that too, it's heavy how these oppressors, they'll change up the word play, the language of it, and make it seem, try to downplay what it is, like right, wrong, where they, in a rock form or in the powder form, where it's still legal,
Mm-hmm.
But back to what you were saying, like on the, where they did away, they supposed to did away with slavery, but unless you were incarcerated, they changed the wording on it. Now instead of saying slavery, they just use the word convict leasing, which is basically like, when a person incarcerated, you can legally have them work for corporations or nothing.
Exactly. Like you legally, like there's there's what you call it, there's a minimum wage, right? As you go work, if you not, locked up, there's a minimum wage, right? That you can have. But when you're in prison, they'll pay you 50 cents a day. That's slavery. That is slavery right there. And they would just feed you and you basically just had to go to work. That's slavery. Alright? So, but yeah, he knew all his whole life that he was a prophet. He knew that he was coming, he was trying to save his people. He knew that he was an Israelite. He knew that the black people were Israelites, and he was trying to save black people out of captivity. He read all the scriptures that we read all of the time that said that black people were going to be caught and be put in slavery. Because another thing you got to think of too, this is before the Apocrypha was moved out of the Bible. A lot of people don't know that. This is before that. So he had the Apocrypha, He had the Old Testament and the New Testament. He was reading the whole Bible. Y'all do know there was a slave Bible, right? There was a slave Bible they would give us that only had like the New Testament, which is if you ever seen that little small little pocket Bible they used to give out, that's a version of the slave Bible. That's why black churches had a little Bible. What does it have on there? It got all the New Testament and the Book of Psalms. That's it. That's the whole thing. The Book of Psalms. Only thing from you don't need to know nothing about that Old Testament. You need to just know that Jesus loves everybody. That's it. You don't need to know nothing about the Old Testament. But he was a preacher, because at this point what they would do is anybody, because he had like his gift was like he knew how to speak to black people, right? They would have certain people that knew how to speak, that was good orators, right? Just like they do now, and they would tell them what to say. So they basically put the hand up behind like a puppet. It make them say what they want to say, and then over time, as he's being a preacher and all of this, he starts to really go and read and study, and then he learns that who he is, and then now he wants to save his people. See what I'm saying? All right, you go ahead and play.
Nat Turner's slave rebellion triggered a massive mobilization of local militia and vigilante units in Virginia and neighboring North Carolina. As many as 3,000 armed men were called into action to fight what turned out to be 60 to 80 rebels.
The balance of sheer military power was weighted tremendously against the slaves in this country. Slaves don't have the organization, the access to arms, the military tradition to be able to mobilize a successful insurrection.
Slavery itself was such an abomination that I could see how it would drive men and women to do desperate things. And a slave revolt by its nature to me is a pretty desperate act.
Outraged by the sight of the victims of the revolt, including many badly mutilated women and children, the militia and vigilante units engaged in a slaughter of their own.
The violent, brutal reaction is meant as a warning. It's meant to frighten those who might be contemplating acts like this in the future. It's meant to demonstrate the power of white society.
At least 50 and perhaps many more slaves and free blacks were summarily executed in the days after the suppression of the rebellion.
There's no question that there's a cult of violence that surrounds
What they doing?
tension
Pause
between
that.
black and white during slavery times, and
You see that? They go and they get black and Native American heads and put them on display to try to scare you from being, revolting with coming against them. They're the one who got you in captivity, right? You would think they would understand because they was under captivity of the British, right? But no, you supposed to be their property. That's how they think in their minds. They're supposed to be free, but everybody else isn't. Everybody's supposed to serve them, right? Keep going.
after. It's hard for us to fathom cutting off people's heads and putting them on poles, parading them around, hanging bodies up in chains, dismembering the body, taking home souvenirs.
All that take home souvenirs.
We know all about the victims, the white victims of Turner's Rebellion, who they were, where they were killed, what their names were, what their families were. Nobody knows the names of even all the participants in the Turner Rebellion, and certainly all the innocent blacks who were killed or imprisoned or beaten afterwards. This is not part of our official historical memory. That piece of the story is just forgotten or suppressed and probably can never really be completely recovered.
If a lot of those black people were not the property of white people, a lot more of them would be killed. Wasn't it the Virginia law that said if you kill somebody's slave, the state had to reimburse them the cost of the slave or something like that?
Yeah, you see that? They would have killed more people, but they had to reimburse them for the slaves. So it became, they didn't want to kill anymore because they had the state had to reimburse them. That's how they did us. You was literally just property to be sold, right? So then a lot of us, they sold to other states. A lot of the ones that was in the revolt, they killed like the main ones, and then they sent a lot of them off to other different states and everything like that. So keep going.
Every rebel except Nat Turner was quickly killed or captured. During the month of September and on into October, nearly 50 accused rebels stood trial in Southampton County.
Stand up. Guilty as charged. You shall be hanged by the neck until you are convicted.
The prisoner is guilty. The court does value the said slave to the sum of $425.
Ultimately, 19 were hanged, while others were transported and sold outside the boundaries of the state.
The court recommends to the governor that the punishment be commuted to transportation.
And still, Nat Turner remained at large. On September 17, 1831, Virginia Governor John Floyd issued a proclamation offering a $500 reward for the capture of Nat Turner.
A lot of money back in those days. You keep that, I'm saying that's a lot of money back in those days. $500 is a lot of money.
5 years old, 5 feet 6 or 8 inches high, weighs between 150 and 160 pounds. Rather bright complexion, but not a mulatto. Broad shoulder, large flat nose, large eyes, broad flat feet.
Governor Floyd's description of Nat Turner is the closest thing we have to a portrait of the man. But it is nothing more than a wanted poster, created to help white men capture a fugitive. We do not know exactly what happened at the capture of Nat Turner, but a 19th century engraving offers one possible image of the moment. We do know it was not until October 30th, 70 days after the outbreak of the rebellion, that Benjamin Phipps stumbled on to Nat Turner's hiding place. The slave had never wandered further than a few miles from his home farm.
Come on out of there. You come on out of there now. Put it down. I said put it down.
The next morning, he was taken to the Southampton County Jail in Jerusalem to await trial. It was there in a jail cell that Nat Turner first encountered a local lawyer, Thomas R. Gregg. Over the next 3 days,
the lawyer right here.
Gregg interviewed Turner
interview
and then
got all
published
this
his version of Turner's story,
about his
which later became the main source for all future interpretations of the man.
The late insurrection in Southampton greatly excited the public mind and led to thousands of idle, exaggerated, and mischievous reports. Everything connected to that sad affair was wrapped in mystery until Nat Turner, the leader of that ferocious band whose name resounded throughout our widely extended empire, was captured. Since his confinement, with permission of the jailer, I have had ready access to him and determined for the gratification of public curiosity to commit his statements to writing and publish them with little or no variation to his own words.
Nobody can, I think, say precisely why Thomas R. Gray went into the jail cell on November the 1st, 1831. It could be that he just wanted the public to know. He felt the public had a right to know what Nat Turner had done from Nat Turner's own point of view. It could be that he sought prestige after a great drop in his own reputability by going in and making himself as famous as he could by being Nat Turner's amanuensis, taking down what he said. He could have been thinking of the income he might derive.
You've asked me to give you the history of the motives which induced me to undertake the late insurrection, as you call it. To do so, I must go back to the days of my infancy and even before I was born. I was 31 years of age on the 2nd October last, born the property of Benjamin Turner of this county. Being at play with other children when 3, 4 years old, I was telling them something, which my mother overhearing said it had happened before I was born. I stuck to my story, however, and related some things which went, in her opinion, to confirm it. Others being called on were greatly astonished, knowing that these things had happened, and caused them to say in my hearing, I surely would be a prophet, as the Lord had shown me things that happened before my birth.
Many historians are not convinced that all, or even most of the words Gray attributes to Turner were actually spoken by him.
Pause right there real quick.
There is no Nat Turner.
So everybody says that, you know, now they say that they don't think that was spoken by him. I'm gonna tell you right now, him saying that our oppressor is the devil, you know that was spoken by him. You know that he knew that who the devil was. Right? It's the rest of the people out there that don't think that who the devil is. They think it's somebody that's on the ground. But he knew the oppressor was the devil. He knew that very well. So he knew that Israel was us. This is what has already been known. His family, I think a brother did an interview with his family at some point, like his descendants, and they said, yeah, he knew that he was an Israelite. He knew that we descend from Israel, that we descend from, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He knew that we descend from them. All right, hey, can you skip past this part a little bit? Yeah, skip, yeah, you play it.
Back there, whole, to be retrieved. You'd have to go and create Nat Turner. I mean, we have a very fragmented, disjointed narrative, which purports to be the confessions. And there's the question of whose voice is there.
I do not believe for a moment that Nat Turner talked that way.
It is very clear by now that we cannot take Nat Turner's confessions at face value. But it is also very clear that we cannot cast it aside.
Gray's Confessions of Nat Turner creates a definite image of the man, but we can never be sure the face we see is that of Nat Turner.
I was praying one day at my plow. The Spirit spoke to me, saying, seek ye the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be added unto you. What do you mean by the Spirit? The Spirit that spoke to the prophets in former days. Nat Turner must have eaten up the Christian and Hebrew scriptures and must have begun to feel and see and sense himself as the embodiment of these. The thunder rolled in the heavens, and blood flowed in streams. And I heard a voice saying, such is your luck, such you are called. And let it come rough or smooth, you must surely bear it. While laboring in the field, I discovered drops of blood on the corn, as though it were dew from heaven, and communicated it to many, both white and black in the neighborhood. And I then found on the leaves in the woods hieroglyphic characters and numbers with the forms of men and different attitudes portrayed in blood and representing figures I had seen before in the heavens. And on the 12th of May, 1828, I heard a loud noise in the heavens, and the Spirit instantly appeared to me and said that the serpent was loosened, and that Christ had laid down the yoke he had borne for the sins of man, and that I should take it on and fight against the serpent. For the time was fast approaching when the first should be last, and the last should be first.
Do you not find yourself mistaken now?
Was not Christ crucified?
Was not Christ crucified? That's an astonishing statement by a man who's chained to the wall, going to be hanged the next day. And he's told that all your comrades are hanged, that your wife has been sold south, that you will be hanged tomorrow. And he stands up from the cot and he says, was not Christ crucified? Gabriel Nazareth is one of the great moments in human history, isn't it?
Any intelligent reader coming on the confessions, the original confessions of Matt Turner, and then reflects on those confessions for a while, would have to say to himself, this guy is a crazy lunatic. There's something really strange. The moment when he says to Mr. Gray, was not Christ crucified?
The myths contradict each other, and they grow up. He's a saint. He's a crazy man. You get conflicting reports. People repeat them. They get carried on, and the historian has to peel back through that onion and try to find the real historical person.
And until the first sign appeared, I should conceal it from the knowledge of man. And on the appearance of the sign,
The eclipse of the sun last February,
I should arise and prepare myself and slay my enemies with their own weapons. And until we had armed and equipped ourselves and gathered sufficient force, neither age nor sex was to be spared.
which was invariably adhered to.
When people bring that argument
Pause
to
that
me,
real
that
quick.
Walt,
It's always funny how they want us to feel sorry about their children dying, right? You know that you see that was a year or two. He cares about his children, but the thing I heard Commander Yahanna say, he said, maybe we care about our children too. You know what I'm saying? Why can't we care about our children? Why the only children that people can care about is little oppressor children? Right? Maybe we care about our children too. Maybe we want our children to be free. Maybe we don't want them to have to say yes, master. Could that be possible? But he wants us to feel bad for his children. That comes from the whole white image of Christianity. They want us to feel bad for them. That's why they changed the pictures and the depictions of Christ and all these and all the other people of the Bible. So now we think that they're the chosen people. And no, you the chosen people of God, man. You the chosen people of God. But like I said, man, like when I hear stories like this, like you should be cheering. Just like how we have feast days. We have feast days celebrating the downfall of our enemies, us destroying our enemies. We have feast days on that, right? You shouldn't feel no type of way. That's what David said. He can't wait. He like you want to smash the baby's head against the stones, right? Happy should he be when that happens, right? I think you know about that, right? Yeah. That's why he woke up. He looked at me as soon as they said that. Happy should I be when we smash their head against the stones, right? All right. So why should you feel bad about this happening? No, none of us should feel bad about this. They had you in captivity. They drugged you over here in slave ships, right? They ain't even give you decent accommodations. You was literally urinating, defecating. Women was on their cycles, all of that, all in the bottom of the thing. People were getting sick, and then when you die, they just throw you out off the edge. Brothers getting lesions because they're not able to wash. You know what I'm saying? You know what happens like your body if you don't wash for a certain time and you get all of that crud on you. Body starts getting open sores, all of this stuff. And when you get too sick and you die, they just throw you off overboard. Like you wasn't even worth them, caring about, right? And you care about their children. Their children became them, right? They raising their children. What the Bible say? Raise a child up, and and that's how they will go, right? They raise their children up to be evil, to be devils, and that's how they should go. So why you care about their children? All right, keep playing.
Kill people and while you're trained, but that's declared. This is my position now. That's declared. You give people the chance to know that I'm going to fight you or that I might kill you. These people were not given that opportunity.
Pause there. You see that?
Have to be.
Pause there. She wants to have an opportunity to know that they gonna be killed. You think the slaves knew they was about to be slaves? They weren't gonna never see their family again when they got dragged over here? Did they give them an opportunity? Did you get any opportunity? Did you have the opportunity to know? Okay, hey, if you gonna come to America, or you gonna stay wherever you at, or you gonna be a slave? Did you get that opportunity? Not at all. None of us got that opportunity. But they want to have the opportunity to know that they can fight back against people that were slaves. Did Nat Turner did he get that option? That's what I'm saying. Did anybody get these options? None of them. But they wanted these people that they tried to tell you like these were just innocent people sleeping in their bed. No, these were slave owners. They weren't just your average, oppressive man sleeping in their bed, waiting on Santa Claus. No. That's what you thinking. Silent night. No. They was slave masters. They was beating other black people half to death. And they want us to feel bad that they didn't get an opportunity to live. Why they had them, the people that was fighting them because of oppression. Why didn't you let them go? Let them decide they want to be a slave or not. And then you can at least have a little room to say, okay, well, why don't we gave you the opportunity to know? We didn't have, we didn't have that. All right, keep playing. Hell with these devils, man.
You spare the kids, they run off and warn your enemies. If you're gonna take that road, you better make up your mind to take it to the end. That is a horror thing. I mean, it's all well and good to say that these killings came out of rage. I don't doubt that to a certain extent they did, but the real horror is that even if they hadn't, matters would have probably taken the same course. A revolution is either thorough or it's doomed. Real revolutionaries know that, which is why they have to proceed in cold blood.
Even the devil telling you gotta do it. You gotta kill their children. Right? What did the angels tell Saul? He should have killed all them Amalekites, right? He said, don't leave nothing standing.
Right.
Nothing that pisseth against the wall, everything gone. He wanted all of their children, but he wanted to leave one. And that bastard Agag, his children was able to put in a position to almost have all of Israel destroyed. Right? Because of one bastard. One bastard named Agag that he kept. Keep playing.
5 in number was the work of a moment. There was a little infant sleeping in a cradle that was forgotten until we had left the house and gone some distance. When Henry and Will returned and killed it.
The killing of the women and children stick in my craw more than anything else. He would certainly be remembered better by history if he had limited the killing to adult males or just all white adults.
That evil that he saw was what was needed to be destroyed. And the only way to force the destruction of that evil was to make the price so high that those who was practicing slavery would eventually sue for peace and says, we cannot keep slavery because it will cost us too much.
The only thing I will say is slavery was so wrong, but murder is wrong too.
Paul. Y'all hear this old devil? Y'all hear this old devil? Jesus say slavery is wrong, but murder is wrong too. How much did they murder before Nat Turner was even born?
I was about to say, that was a contradiction right there.
Exactly, that's a contradiction. Go ahead, sis.
Like you said, I was going to say not just murder, but torture.
Good.
Torture.
You know what they did to sisters? What they did to sisters? While they were pregnant, they would cut the baby out of their stomach and let them hang and burn them. Huh? Yeah, fed their babies to alligators. They call it gator bait. They would take, you know what they did? You know what they would do to a little baby that's swaddling baby that you carrying? They would tie a rope around its neck, throw it in the water. It starts screaming. It would attract alligators. And then when the alligator swallows the whole baby whole, they would grab the alligator and then tie the rope around his mouth and then kill the alligator. And now your baby dead. But then they would always try to say in a report, oh, the baby was fine after that. No, that baby was dead. And they fed our children to alligators. But of course, murder is wrong too. But why do they just leave them the hell alone? Right? Leave them the hell alone. They won't. But see, they only understand. They only understand death if it comes to them. They don't. They are like incapable of empathy. Like what's the word they call narcissists? You're incapable of empathy. That's what they are. Incapable of empathy. They can't feel nobody's pain but their own. That's it.
Like you said, I always tell my husband that I know back then, I know I killed my slave owner because I know how I feel about my kids. So I know if that was done to them, I know I killed my slave owner.
And that's what I'm saying. But if we do it, oh, you wrong, you shouldn't have killed them. But what about everything they did to you? None of that, they don't go to jail for that. What about Black Wall Street? Where is it?
Did you know that the dunk tanks were inspired by a circus game they used to play with black men and children called Hit the Nigger Baby?
Oh
yes. They would put a black person behind a curtain and they would throw eggs and baseballs at them and they had to try and dodge it.
I believe it. I believe it. This is circus games. I was watching today a little bit about it was about a brother. Well, they was like having a debate or whatever. They were saying that the NFL was the sister. I think the sister was saying that's a part of that's like slavery again. But then the dude was saying no, it's not slavery because he worked to become an NFL player, right? Which of course his brother is lost. He don't understand. He must don't understand slavery and what they did in slavery. Okay. Now y'all do know that there were certain brothers that they raised, right, to be fighters. Y'all seen it in movies. They seen it, sometimes they depict it in movies. They would let like two brothers fight each other until the death, and that was sport to them. They did the same thing with the gladiators. Go ahead.
How you doing with the Django, sir? That's good example, sir?
Yeah, like I think that was Django. When he had that two brothers fighting each other. That is true. They had us fighting each other. Right? Like Django, that story wasn't true. That was fiction. But a lot of things that happened in that story was true. Right? So they had us fighting each other. They would raise some brothers up like they knew if it was a strong woman, a strong man, and they raised up the child. They would raise that child up to be, a football player, right? They would raise them up. And then when they had the slave auctions, they had you with barely any clothes on. They had you with just like shorts on, and they would go look at your body and try to see how good, how good of a slave you are. They do that with NFL too. They parade. They had these men in the NFL with nothing but they basically boy shorts on, right? And they around all these other men, and all of the owners of teams look at them and say, okay, that's a good prospect to be on my team.
Like, sir, I haven't seen the documentary that Colin Kaepernick put out, but those are the things that he put, try to compare to show us like it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing. And guess who was the richest slaves? Those players. They ate good. Those ones they had fighting other black people, they ate good. They gave them money. Right? That's your NFL, NBA players. That's who they were. And they felt, and they had, everything. They gave them all of the women they want, all of that. What's the difference? Nothing. Music. They had certain brothers that can play music real well. They had them play for all the other Caucasians. And they let them live a little better than all the rest of you niggers. Right? The same thing. That's why we honor the musicians and the ball players. That's the same thing they did then. Right? There's all stuff that came from slavery. It's just in a greater sense, I guess you could put it. Like, they wasn't millionaires, of course, during the slavery, but they lived well. They lived good, right? And that was to make you, because they knew basically they could get them people to sell out, and they could get them like think of like Mike Tyson, right? They had him fighting all the other people, all the other black people, beating the hell out of all of them. Now you get somebody like Mike Tyson to love our oppressor. Not everybody else, because that's who supposed to fight. Who's your leader? Like, the best fighters is the athletes. That shows you, like, David and them, they was the supreme athletes of everybody. Who else? Samson, right? He killed 100 people with a jawbone of an ass. Killed, 1,000 people. These are your athletes. And that's who we was following. But you got them fighting for the oppressor. What do you think we gonna fight for? Right? All right, play it.
Mrs. Reese's where finding the door unlocked, we entered and murdered Mrs. Reese in her bed while sleeping. Her son awoke, but had only time to say, "Who's that?" And he was no more.
I think that for many people, many white people, they identify with the innocence. They identify with innocent children. It's a position that's much more comfortable than identifying with slaveholders. And because that's a feature of the story, it makes it seem safe for people who know that they have to stand morally against slavery to say nonetheless that there was something morally wrong in the uprising.
I don't think his goal was to kill white children. His goal was to get freedom for his people. And if, way before Malcolm even said it, by any means necessary, and if that meant to killing of white children, so be it. And it was an uncompromising position, and I think it was based on something that he had seen around him, the killing of black children, the selling of black children. And
you don't want to mention that, though.
I understand why he did it.
Calm, deliberate composure. That's what she spoke of his late deeds. He captured the expression on his fiend-like face, more than excited by enthusiasm, still bearing the stains of the blood of helpless innocence about him. Clothed in rags, wrapped in chains, yet daring to raise his manacled hands to heaven with a spirit soaring above the attributes of man. I looked on him and my blood curdled in my veins. He's a complete fanatic. He plays his part most admirably.
You mad about white babies dying?
I was struck with the tug that Nat Turner had over him. And so I remember thinking, even as he was trying to present him as this figure, this misguided fanatic, as he called him, he was still fascinated with him, impressed by him in some way.
See, they only respect when you
over and over again.
They only respect you fighting them. They don't respect, they want you to be Christian because they want you to rock yourself to sleep. But they don't respect you being Christian. He was admired by him because of what he did. They called him a crazy fanatic, right? You know what's fanatical? Like they don't, but then it's looked upon honorable. Remember they had the Boston Tea Party where they threw all the tea out because they got tired of the British taxes, right? And it's led to a whole war against other Caucasians, right? That's what started a war because they got tired of tax on tea. But that's fine. They're not fanatical. Nothing's wrong with them. But a slave wanting to fight to get out of captivity, something's wrong with him. Right? Don't go into other land saying manifest destiny, that God said I should have this land. They're not fanatical. That's normal. But him saying I want black people to be free from the oppressor, you a fanatic. But guess what? What does scripture say? What does scripture say? You gonna be, it say something like, you gonna be, call yourself simple or call yourself foolish, following the Most High. You gonna be foolish. Right? Can anybody find that for me? Where it says you're gonna be foolish? It's in the New Testament. Anybody in the conference call can find that for me? You can play it. Let me know when you find it.
Those who search for the meaning of Nat Turner begin their inquiry with a search for the meaning of the Confessions.
I see Turner's Confessions as our confessions of not really being quite sure who we are in relationship to each other, black and white in this country.
Oh yeah, pause that real quick. Give me, I found it. It's 1 Corinthians 1:21. Can somebody get that for me? Give me some on the conference call. You get that for me?
God, 1 Corinthians 1:21. For after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe.
So it's telling you right here. For after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. So they don't know the wisdom because we've been taught by our oppressors the Bible. They're not going to know the wisdom of God because they don't have wisdom, right? It pleased God by the foolishness that we got to do. We preaching to these people, right? It's foolish to do it. There's not much gain in preaching to people that don't want to hear, right? Keep going. No, not to. Keep reading.
For the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom.
So, for the Jews, we got to have a sign. A sign got to come for us to want to fight. That's why. What did Moses have to do? He had to go what? Turn his skin white. He put in his bosom, bring it back out. He needed a sign, man. And the Greeks, we needed wisdom. That's the other Israelites. They needed wisdom, right? Keep going.
Oh God. Verse 23. For we preach Christ crucified, unto the Jews a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness.
So we preach Christ crucified. That's what we teach, right? Unto the Jews a stumbling block, and to the Greeks foolishness. It's a stumbling block that we teach them. So they don't understand, because like where they're at is such a beautiful thing. They don't understand that, like when you're in, like when you, I guess you would call it when you asleep, I guess, right? When you call it when you don't know that you an Israelite. All this, it's a beautiful place to live in. You don't think, nothing is wrong. All of us, we knew something was wrong, right? So, all right, keep going.
We know very little about.
Go ahead,
Which are called both Jews and Greeks. Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God.
Go to the next one.
Power of God. Verse 25. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than man, and the weakness of God is stronger than man.
But the foolish things that seem like we doing, it is wiser than anything that the men that we have to preach to is. It's wiser than any of that, right? And the weakness of God, his weakest points is stronger than men, right? His weakest points is us. We the weakest, but it's stronger than the rest of the men, right? All right, you go ahead and play the rest.
The hanging of Nat Turner. The only contemporary account appeared in a local newspaper, and as with all Nat Turner stories, we are left with more questions than facts.
The record about Nat Turner is so ambiguous. We have so few facts, and yet he's at the center of such an enormous controversy that there's room for lots of different interpretations.
In 1852, Harriet Beecher Stowe created a national debate on the morality of slavery with her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. When she published Dread, A Tale of the Dismal Swamp in 1856, with the title character closely based on the historical Nat Turner, she confronted the question of ending slavery by violent means. But she could not embrace an uncompromising black man who was devoted to the death of all white people, and so she softened him considerably.
He was a tall black man of magnificent stature and proportions. He wore a fantastic turban. There were elements in him which might, under other circumstances, have made him a poet. There was in him a vein of that gentleness which softens the heart towards children and the inferior animals.
Yeah, pause
But there also burned.
Y'all know this black man, we gotta be all simple and loving everybody. He did the same thing to Christ. You gotta love everybody. We can't be like serious, austere, right? We can't be shy, right? We can't be like that. We gotta be loving, kissing everybody. Look at them, they got the brother. Boy, what, he playing with a kitten in there? In the middle of the field, playing with a damn kitten. You know what I'm saying? It's different flowers and man, that's what we gotta be. Because they said the story wouldn't get out as good having a revolutionary doing this, right? Keep going. Keep reading. Keep playing the.
In him like tongues of flame in a black pool of naphtha, a subtle and restless fire.
He got a shirt halfway done. Look at this man.
Everyone.
Everyone wearing pink.
Because
Hey, what's up? If I were that sexy Jesus.
Exactly, that's what I thought they did too. Mommy is sexy Jesus with the purple caps.
Yeah.
Got his shirt on, got his chest hairs out, trying to show out. See what you gotta have, man. That's what they want a black man to be, man. Keep going, keep playing.
fits into the role each creator wants to make him fit into. The amazing thing about Nat Turner is the fact that so little is known about him. We have those confessions and virtually nothing else. There are almost no accounts of what he was like seen through the eyes of anyone else, black or white. So this is, as I say, an astounding boon and a gift to anyone who wanted to use him as a metaphor or symbol for anything having to do with slavery, with having to do with freedom, having to do with rebellion. He fits no mold and fits every mold all at once. And that's what has made him so intriguing to so many people over the years.
Yeah, pause that real quick.
In the years leading up to this,
but y'all notice like how he hates them because he know that he was killing, little white babies, right? But like, don't they love the oppressor? Don't they love the underdog? Right? Mm-hmm. Don't they love the Redskins and the Cowboys? Don't ever win, but they love them to death. Right? They love the underdog. That's why they love the stories of the Bible, the underdog winning. They just put themselves in this. I tell you right now, if they was able to, probably 2,000 years, they gonna rewrite Nat Turner and make it them. This gonna be Wyatt Turner now. What? And they gonna talk about he was fighting against his, some other oppressors or whatever, trying to get free. They gonna take the whole black face off of it. The dark skinned man, he gonna take it all off of that. Right? And hell, they even trying to. I think they were saying that his father was one of the slave masters. They trying to say that. Goes to show you, they already trying to whiten them up, ain't they? Just add a little sprinkle there, a little sprinkle here, and before you know, he gonna have blue hair, he gonna be blue eyes and blonde hair in a minute. Watch. Another 100 years, you ain't gonna know who he was. Go ahead.
Civil War, Frederick Douglass and other black abolitionists repeatedly voiced admiration for Nat Turner and other slave rebels.
What Douglass said was that the Nat Turners were actually more legitimately the heirs of the American Revolution than the whites who celebrated July 4th every year in the 1840s and 50s, but owned slaves and deprived millions of Americans of their freedom.
Continuing in the tradition of Frederick
William
Wells Brown, an abolitionist leader who had escaped from slavery, invoked an heroic image of Nat Turner in an essay written during the Civil War. In the midst of this essay, he imaginatively constructed the speech Turner might have delivered to his fellow conspirators at Cabin Pond.
Friends and brothers, we are to commence a great work tonight. Our race is to be delivered from slavery. And God has appointed us as the men to do his bidding. And let us be worthy of our calling. We glory in these heroes as children will. Sometimes we would create among ourselves, we boys in particular, our own version of what Nat did and what we would have done if we'd have been old Nat, and how that would have satisfied us greatly.
While some African Americans invoke Nat Turner's name as a great black hero and liberator, most Southern whites continue to portray him as a fanatic and villain who attacked an essentially benevolent institution. This became the dominant white view throughout the nation during the late 19th and 20th centuries. Black folk memories of the rebellion surfaced in the WPA interviews of ex-slaves conducted during the 1930s. The WPA undertook the task of finding and questioning black residents of the South who had once been slaves. Sometimes the interviews produced memories that were obviously passed on by family members who lived at the time of Nat Turner's revolt. Sometimes these recollections explored the violence in Turner's insurrection. In 1937, the ex-slave Alan Crawford spoke about Nat Turner from stories he had heard growing up in Southampton County.
First place he got to was his mistress's house. Say God deigned him to start the first war with 40 men. Well, when he got to his mistress's house, he commenced to grab his missus's baby and he slung him back and forth 3 times. Said it was hard for him to kill this baby because he had been so playful when he was sitting on his lap. So, third sling, he went quick about it, killing that baby.
The 1930s were a turbulent time in America. It was an era of segregation when the seeds of change were beginning to be sown. During this time of racial strife, artists, writers, and playwrights were inspired to tell the story of Nat Turner and his revolt, exploring the consequences of using violence to end oppression in his time and their own.
Let me get your phone.
In 1935, black theater educator Randolph Edmonds presented the Nat Turner.
Okay. So there's a little article right here. Nat Turner is a black American slave who led the only effective sustained slave rebellion in U.S. history, spreading terror throughout the white South. His actions set off a new wave of oppressive legislation prohibiting the education, movement, and assembly of slaves that stiffened pro-slavery and anti-abolitionist convictions that persisted in their region to the American Civil War. So that people thought that black people did not know how to read, black people did know how to read. Nat Turner knew how to read. This is when they tried to stop black people from learning how to read, right? We used to sit around, there's stories that we used to sit around with mitres on, covering our heads and war scars, reading the Bible in the caves, right? Turner was born the property of a prosperous small plantation owner in a remote area of Virginia. His mother was an African native who transmitted a passionate hatred of slavery to her son. He learned to read from one of his master's sons, and he eagerly absorbed intensive religious training. In the early 1820s, he was sold to a neighboring farmer of small means. During the following decade, his religious ardor tended to approach fanaticism, and he saw himself called upon God to lead his people out of bondage. He began to exert a powerful influence on the many of the nearby slaves who called him the prophet. In 1831, shortly after he'd been sold again, this time to a craftsman named Joseph Travis, a sign in the form of an eclipse of the sun caused Turner to believe that the hour of the strike was near. His plan to capture the armory at the county seat Jerusalem, and having gathered many recruits to press on to the dismal swamp 30 miles to the east, where capture would be difficult. On the night of August 21st, together with 7 fellow slaves in whom he had put his trust, he launched a campaign of total annihilation, murdering Travis and his family in their sleep, and then setting forth on a bloody march towards Jerusalem. In 2 days and nights, about 60 white people were ruthlessly slain. Doomed from the start, Turner's insurrection was handicapped by lack of discipline among his followers and by the fact that only 75 blacks rallied to the cause. Armed resistance from the local whites and the arrival of the state militia, a total force of 3,000 men, provided the final crushing blow. Only a few miles from the county seat, the insurgents were dispersed and either killed or captured, and many innocent slaves were massacred in hysteria that followed. Turner eluded his pursuers for 6 weeks, but was finally captured, tried, and hanged. Nat Turner's rebellion put an end to the white Southern myth that slaves were either contented with their lot or too servile to mount an armed revolt. In Southampton County, black people came to measure time from Nat's Freight or Old Nat's War for many years in black churches throughout the country. The name Jerusalem not only referred to the Bible, but also covertly to the place where the rebel slave had met his death. Turner has been wildly popularized by William Styron in his novel The Confessions of Nat Turner. Okay, now that's what happened to Nat Turner after he was dead. It says he and 27 other rebel slaves were tried, and Turner and 15 others were hanged. After his execution, Turner's body was torn apart. It was stripped of skin and boiled. Newbie Alexander said the bones were distributed and body fat was used to make soap. Rather, they don't tell you what they did. They took his skin and made boots with it. Made leather boots with his skin. So they made him into a souvenir, like they want him to be an example of what happens if you go against, white supremacy, right? This is what they did to Nat Turner. Let me see if I can find one that tells more about it. His corpse was given to doctors for dissection and his body parts distributed among white families, as recounted by John Cromwell in the 1920 article, The Journal of Negro History. Turner was skinned to supply such souvenirs as purses, flesh made into grease, and his bones divided as trophies to be handed down as heirlooms. And after this rebellion, it became illegal. They made laws it illegal to teach African Americans how to read or write. So like I said, we knew how to read and write. It just wasn't, it's like, you gotta think they didn't have school like they do now. Even a lot of oppressor kids didn't get like a high education like that. You know what I mean? Like, of course the rich ones did. But the regular ones, they were dropping out in 9th grade and all of that. So education isn't the way it is now. School was not that type of situation. So, they learned how to read and a couple things, how to write, some math, and that was basically it, right? So, like I said, they knew black people didn't know how to read or write. They knew how to play music, all of these different things. So we was reading the Bible. And then that's when they really stopped at this time. It wasn't, they didn't mind us reading, they just didn't want us reading the Bible. And then the biggest thing they really wanted us to not read was the Bible. Like it was even said that, they didn't want to give anybody the Bible because they seen what even him and then Mark Vesey did, right? They said they were prophets and they went to fight against our oppressor. Because they knew the Bible said that we was Israelites and we need to come out of slavery, right? So, all right. Anybody got any questions? Anybody want to say? With that, pass the class over to Precinct Officer 50, the Pastor Young.
This is the I.S.U.P.K security announcements. With the I.S.U.P.K start on 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for a new brother and sister. When a new brother and sister come to the school, they are living for 6 months. They are here to be saluted only. They are here to set themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to your brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which your brother and sister will court each other. After this 6 month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 21, and the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. My I.S.U.P.K means 10 in the Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the church department or teacher. Priest fund, free will for priests not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you like to give. The next holy convocation is the Feast of Purim. It's going to be Monday, February 14 and Tuesday, February 15, sundown. You also find this in the book of Esther, chapter 9, verse 20 through 31. Remind Akim and I'll walk in and check the bulletin board in the hallway. If you want to be a trooper to school, you start wearing all black, boot, shirt, pad, headband, and a scarf. And one day you go to the school, make sure you Google this address, the GPS. The address is 3353 Glenwood Road, Decatur, Georgia. They also help, build the algorithms, help people find out about the school. With that, in Israel, Michael. Give one curse salute to the man in the building and the man on the line. Ben Israel, a Michael Sabbat, a Mike, a Rock, Yahweh Shem Yahshua
Yahweh Shem Yahshua.
Well, I just said to you in Hebrew, may the Most High in the name of Christ bless you. Yat Yim the top, your hands down, sorry. Turn to sisters, sister stand, a mighty. Give one curse salute to the sisters. Ben Israel, a Michael Sabbat, a Mike, a Rock. Yahweh Shema Elatham B'Shem Yahushai.
Yahweh Shema Elatham B'Shem Yahushai.
What you said to sisters is may the Most High watch over you in the name of Christ. Yah Yim the top, class is missed.